Welcome everybody to AI Expo Africa 2020. This is AI TV and I'm Nick Bradshaw. We're broadcasting live from the show. This is the COVID edition, so we're online and we had to take our conference into an online paradigm this year. And the same for AI TV. We've moved our studio online. We're using Zoom. I'm sure that for the Microsoft advocates out there, you'd want me using Teams, but it gives me great pleasure to introduce Thavesh Govinda, who's the data and AI specialist at Microsoft South Africa. Welcome, Thavesh, to the show.
Thanks, Nick. It's very good to be here, actually.
Well, Thavesh, thanks for giving a very stimulating talk at the show, and also thanks to Microsoft for supporting us this year. Every year you've been part of our community, and we really do thank you for that. And also that you uniquely ran an online Microsoft Labs at the show, which the feedback I'm getting from the survey was that people loved it. So congratulations again for your commitment and support, and we really do appreciate it.
No, very happy with that. It was very interesting doing this show remotely. I think there are pros and cons to it. But you know, some of the pros would be that global reach and just the ability to bring all types of people in. I think we had people from the continent, which we wanted. We had international speakers, which is always great, really ups the ante. So, you know, the thing is, going forward, we may still see virtual events even after this pandemic is over. We may still see the just the flexibility that you get. Hopefully the load shedding stays away.
Yeah.
And then we can go.
Well, Thavesh, yeah, I mean, look, so far I've done AI TV interviews today from the Netherlands. I've been to East Coast America, and I think that was a great facet of this year's show, is that we had a lot of people from Europe, and we had some from Middle East and Asia, as well as North America, Canada, and the US. So, you know, there has to be some upside, and I think we definitely achieved the kind of reach we wanted. Can always do better, but look, the main thing is really business and AI. You're at the cutting edge of that particular paradigm. You're working with some of the biggest enterprise clients in the region, and obviously exposing them to the Microsoft Azure stack and your ML stack. So tell us a little bit about, you know, what you've been seeing over the last 2 years, some of the trends, some of the feedback, you know, what is going on with big business and AI in our region?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. It's been a good 2 years, and we've made measurable progress, you know, compared to where we were. So just a bit on my role. I look after what we call the data and AI product set, which includes databases, machine learning platforms, and in the cloud, everything's just booming. There's something new every day in the cloud. And I look after that for just about 3 of the largest customers that Microsoft has in South Africa in my current role, right? Previously, I did a lot of work in the financial services sector. And this is a sector that luckily had a very good uptake of AI over the last few years. But, you know, we felt 2 or 3 years ago that we were trying to put a square peg in a round hole sometimes. You know, we were trying to find the use case. We knew the technology was cool. It's AI's time, but we somewhat felt that we were just forcing the issue. Now, in 2020, even working remotely in this pandemic, I'm seeing good use cases come out. I'm seeing mature AI teams, sometimes sitting in IT, but the good news is, you know, really sitting in business. You know, the skills thing is really amazing. Skills was a massive problem about, let's say, 2 to 3 years ago. And one thing I have to share, I've seen these university students graduate and come through, and a lot of them have just been pushed into these roles. You know, you know the stats and the mathematics, and we need you to do this. And some of them are just flying. It's really a good feeling when, as a vendor, you go to a customer and you see really young guys doing amazing things with your technology that you've never seen before. And to see that in Africa, really, really great to see.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously Microsoft now own LinkedIn, and I was lucky enough last year to get a LinkedIn executive briefing from the Africa region team, and they were talking about some of the skills dynamics. And it's interesting you touch on that, because one of the observations that LinkedIn have made, I mean, you know, they literally have the biggest real-time analytics platform on jobs and what people are up to, was that the gap, or the duration of skills and your need to continually evolve that has shortened. So, you know, when I was at school in the 70s and 80s, you know, you learned some basic subjects, and then you went to higher education, and then you got a job. Whereas now, learning sort of starts at a young age, and then you'll carry on learning during your career as well. These skills will constantly need to evolve. And the other thing that they observed was that, you know, whilst there are a lot of jobs being created in the artificial intelligence, data science, and cloud paradigm, which is obviously squarely, you know, linked to Microsoft and what you guys are doing, you know, there's plenty of jobs, and I think 52% of them are in Joburg, and 19% of them are in Cape Town. But for every one job, I think for every two jobs that's created, going up from the new skills guys coming into the market, one person is actually leaving at the top of the pyramid and leaving the country. So I think we've got some interesting skills challenges. The dynamic is changing a little bit, but I think it's a positive thing. I think getting into the data science space, I mean, looking at, you know, some of the programs that Microsoft are running as well in the startup space, you know, there's a healthy ecosystem out there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have stats and numbers, which is poor form for an AI conversation, right? But the main thing for me is, Nick, what you said is very interesting. Going forward from this point on, whatever role you take, it's going to be the norm of the 21st century that you're going to have to be constantly learning, right? Big companies and vendors and governments really need to make this easy and affordable. Affordable education, for me, will determine whether a country weathers the AI storm. AI does not have to mean jobs being taken away, because you've got to reskill. You have new fields like data science. You're going to have, you're going to have quantum computing. You're going to have AI at the edge. We're actually moving up the educational value chain, as long as your country invests in education and making it easy. But I think this is where platforms like LinkedIn, just make it so easy to learn the basics. We've got something called the AI School, which is totally free of charge. I posted in some of the chat rooms the link to it, and people really respond well. So maybe we can put a link to that at the end of this video.
Definitely.
I think every large...
We'll put that in for sure.
Yeah. And it's free. And the thing is, it's in the interest of tech companies to make this base level education free. The research that's coming down the line is just going to hit us over the next decade or so. And the data scientist will very quickly evolve, even though it's still seen as a new career, into something else. There'll be branches from there. We have to keep evolving. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, look, evolving is name of the game at the moment. I think this year, I definitely have seen the fact that people are willing to embrace online in all its forms. I mean, you know, you don't need to sell cloud anymore. That's a given. We're moving in that direction. But other small features and apps which are making life much more automated. I mean, we've had a lot of people talking at the show this year about hyper automation, you know, one robot per person, automation at the edge. You know, I mean, even just a simple thing to organize our event, we use Calendly. It's not even an AI app, but it takes care of organizing my diary, and it puts the power back in to the person I want to meet to choose when they want to meet me. Now, even that kind of thinking, you know, it's thinking about problems about productivity that don't even necessarily involve AI, but there's still loads and loads of spaces for innovation. And who would have thought that you could innovate the calendar? You know, it's been around, well, certainly been around as long as Microsoft Office has been around. So, you know, we're going to see constant evolution and innovation around all of these areas. Now, going back to your business customers, Thabash, what are the top three challenges that you hear them speak about in terms of, or needs? What are the things that they are trying to solve with some urgency? Have you got any sort of, without naming the customers, but have you seen any trends in that regard?
Yeah, so I mean, let's split this, right? I still work mostly in financial services. So you can imagine the type of customer. Over the last few years, we've been trying to solve things like getting approvals for data sovereignty, moving data to the cloud. The cloud has enabled AI to take off because you have access to almost unlimited compute, GPU. If you're a data scientist working for company X, that company may never have had GPUs in their data center. Now you can run an experiment on a GPU. There's a small cost, the experiment ends. If it's useful, you take it further. So the cloud has enabled AI, but we've had to get over the regulations, the plumbing, the technical scaffolding, if I could call it that, of the hybrid architecture. Now that those things are over, what are the trends? The biggest trends I see in financial services are basically improving the business offerings using AI. So marketing departments are doing things like, identify the best campaign, propensity to consume. There's an overlap there with financial services and retail. So that at Microsoft we focus on 4 pillars. I think this is a good way to put it, right? One pillar is your customer. One pillar is your product. How can you improve your product? So if you're an engineering-led company, you'd probably focus a lot more there. If you're anything to do with banking, retail, you have a customer, a man in the street. How do you make your business more attractive to that person? And then you look at improving your operations. So can I use AI to become more efficiently? This is where there's massive overlap. One of the trends that I noticed at the show now that's going on, things like RPA becoming so close to AI, and it will always be that way, right? IoT and the edge, there will be an AI element. The way I like to put it, and going back to an example you gave, what's going to happen is that AI will become transparent. It won't even be seen as innovation anymore. Everything will just have AI. Calendly, for example, will have better algorithms in the background to not just stick a meeting in at a time that's convenient. But let's say there were 10 of us here trying to get a meeting slot. It will analyze all kinds of information, maybe even weather, and maybe other types of patterns, and so that intelligence will creep into almost everything, right? And an example that I use for comparison is the microcontroller revolution that we had in the 20th century. I'm an electronics guy I studied electronic engineering. And what we had in the 20th century was the microcontroller, which could make automated decisions. It wasn't really AI, but it was logic. We used to call them logic circuits. Crept into everything, your car, your fridge, your television. Everything had a bit of logic to it that enabled it to function a little bit better. And it happened transparently, right? Now, over the next decade or so, you're going to see machine learning and eventually AI creep into almost everything. And the actual hardware, this phone, for example, looks at my face, knows it's me and unlocks. It's got a neural network chip on it, right? That's just crept in. Maybe us tech guys know about it. The average person doesn't know about it. The average person just says, hey, this new model phone can do that. And that transparency is going to be big.
Yeah, look, I mean, just to wrap up, Tavash, I mean, I actually spoke to someone in one of your competitors. I'm not going to name them on the on AI TV, but they actually made a comment that they can't keep up with the innovation inside their own business. And I looked, when I look at the Azure stack and the machine learning stack, and I look at the amount of innovation that's going on inside Microsoft and other vendors of your ilk, it's phenomenal. And I mean, I think what we've seen, even in the 2.5 years, the 3 editions of this show, has just been, where your stack was 3 years ago and where it is now, it's just completely two different things. Would you broadly agree with that?
Yeah, and thanks for that. I mean, even at Microsoft, it keeps the job interesting and exciting at the very least. Right? There's literally something to learn almost every week, and I'm not joking. We have Microsoft research centers, a big research center in China, India, all over the world, really. And while we're catching up with products that we're releasing in the cloud, remember, that's another benefit of the cloud. With Azure, for example, we see just tremendous innovation in deployment. And we try something, it might take off, it might not take off, but we have this steady roadmap of releases. And then there's the research stuff coming in from 5 years out that you have to keep up. So it's never boring, and it's just for me, an exciting world, to live in.
Well, Savash, we'll end on that very positive note that, literally every day now is a new learning opportunity. If you get into the fields of data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, IoT, it is the space to be in. And any young undergraduate or postgraduate that's watching AI TV and this interview, stick with it. It is certainly a great space to be in. And hopefully they'll end up maybe working for you at Microsoft and alongside you. So Savash, just to say thank you very much for joining us today on AI TV. Thank you very much for your speaking contribution, Microsoft support at the event. It truly is acknowledged, and it was great to welcome you back again, and we'll hopefully see you in 2021 as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick. And it's only our pleasure to be a part of this great event.
Thanks.